Great, and we shall get started. I'm just admitting someone in from the waiting room. I'm sorry. So, as I said, welcome to the May online forum from the Techless Scotland. As usual, I'll do some housekeeping, which is helpful if everybody remains muted during our guest speakers chat this evening. Just helps with everybody's sound quality. But feel free to interrupt us with questions, use the chat box, raise your hand. So you came here not to listen to me speak, but to listen to our wonderful guest speaker this evening, which is Amanda Avison. Amanda Avison currently works at Dundee and Angus College, and as far as I'm concerned, is Scotland's forefront pronunciation expert. Aha! No pressure, Amanda. I'm delighted that she's found time at the tail end of a very hectic academic year to share with us some amazing insights into pronunciation in the ESOL classroom. So huge thanks to you, Amanda. I really appreciate your time this evening, and we'll hand straight over to you.
Okay, thank you. Right, let me just share my screen. And can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, that's fine. Okay, hi everyone, thanks for coming. So my aim this evening is to give you some ideas for pronunciation aims and activities related to different skills really in the classroom. It's kind of a mix and match thing. I hope that as we go along, you'll be thinking about your own learners and maybe picking out things that you might be able to use yourselves. And I hope to maybe pose some questions for you to think about. So the first thing I would like to ask you is this. In our classrooms, our resources and course books are often split into reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills practice. So my question is, well, two questions. In which of these 4 skills do you do the most pronunciation work? And in which of them do you do the least pronunciation work? So if you could use the chat box, well, I know there aren't very many people in the room. So which one do you do the most pronunciation work in, and which do you do the least in? Anybody in the chat box? Okay. So at least in writing. Okay. Okay. Most reading and speaking. Okay. Good. I'm glad people are doing pronunciation and reading. At least in writing. Okay. Least speaking, least writing. Okay. I think that's kind of most people in the room at the moment because there aren't very many people. Most in speaking. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to start with reading. And I must admit that I was never that much a fan of reading aloud, but I've been reading some studies recently. So quite a few now, Walter, Yamashita, I don't know how to say this, Jiva and Ramirez. And they show that aspects of word reading skills, including the ability to decode and accurate and fluent word recognition, make an important contribution to reading comprehension. So we've got the lower order skills, which are decoding and word recognition, and these feed into the higher order skills of taking meaning and comprehension. And there's apparently a really strong link here between pronunciation, being able to read the words like in your head, the subvocalization of words, and the impact on reading comprehension. So I've been thinking about some things here. So, and I'm sure many of you do this already, but when we check comprehension answers after a reading activity, there can be 2 main reasons. One is the lack of vocabulary, but secondly, sometimes the learners know those words, but they can't recognize the written form of the word. And when I put here exploit the oh meaning, and that's when, the learner said, what's this word? What's this word? You say the word and they go, oh, I know that word, but you don't know how to read it. So Walter says that the learners need to develop a reliable L2 phonological repertoire in order to help them be really efficient at reading. So Some suggested pronunciation aims or activities. The way I've written the aims, I haven't gone through the whole thing going, learners will have, I've just put a basic aim. So practice recognizing patterns in written words. So the learners read the text, they underline any words that they're not sure how to pronounce. They can work together and think of other words they know that look the same, that might sound the same, and feedback and discuss in class. I'm sure many of you do that activity already. Reading and listening together is a really, really useful way to help learners to match the written word with sound. But also, it's a really good idea to kind of read and listen, but repeat the spoken word with a slight delay, and do it again and again and again. And then you can take off the sound. So even low-level learners can work with this, and they can actually practice at home. When we see them, vocalizing when they're reading, that they can actually be encouraged to do that out loud on a slight delay, and then turn off the sound, and then they can do it. Also, of course, you could use your normal textbooks, but you could use some specific text. So here, this one is actually, the rhyme is from Jonathan Marks, but the activities are mine. So they could read and listen. They could read, listen, and repeat. They could read and listen and mark all the sounds, because as you can see, we're looking here at the final S, the S, and the Z sound, okay? So you could have prediction skills on this. They read it to themselves, they work it out, they read and they listen. And obviously, just looking at the words here, this as a different issue would be a good text to use for linking as well, because you've got gets up, walks to the station, etc. So different ways of using reading texts after they've been used, or you can pick one that you just want to use specifically for reading and pronunciation. But of course, we have the issue of single words. So minimal pairs that are difficult to differentiate between. So you can just use literally a list of minimal pairs, but it's good if there's some kind of consequence. So for example, if the student says a word and the other from one from a pair, and then the other person says which one they've heard. So just as a quick example, student A says either number 1 or number 2, and student B says which one they can hear. So it's actually a reading and a listening activity, I suppose, and production, but we're trying to get them to pronounce the sounds that are difficult. And taking that one stage further, can play games with it. So here we've got a maze, we've got the S and the Z. So this is not really a communicative activity as such, but it is communicating about reading the words. Put it that way around. So if they're starting up here, I don't know if my pen will work. So they're starting up here at this. So they've got to find the sounds with, so they've got to go to rice and then peace, etc., until they arrive down here. And then they've got to go the other way with the Z. So these kind of activities are a good way of getting them to chat about the sounds. And taking it one step further is where we actually use the reading and the minimal pairs in a more communicative activity. Okay, so if you've got Arabic speakers, the P and the B, so then these places, A might be the school, B might be, I don't know, the library, D might be the chemist, and you can set up speaking activities where they actually have to use this minimal pair discrimination. I'm upset because now I've got my pen and I don't have my pointer. Okay, that's all the suggestions I'm going to put for reading. I want to speak about writing a little bit, and then I'm going to give you a chance to speak together. So writing, the main focus really on writing and pronunciation is, of course, to do with spelling. So the focus on the sound, spelling, association. And I've really tried to work on this a lot this year. I don't really know how much progress I've made. So of course, writing is encoding sound, and the alphabet is the code, clearly. Sounding a word out breaks the speech sound into phonemes. And learners need to know how to encode the phonemes using letters. I just need to move this bar and get my hang on. I just need to, okay, sorry. I'm going to move this back now. Okay, so of course, the problems, there are two particular problems, as I'm sure you know. One is linked to pronunciation. So for example, we went to the bark. They can't hear it, so they can't say it correctly in their head. Therefore, they can't code it properly. Or just linked to coding, because as we know, in English spelling, learners do have to learn about coding. So recently, oh no, I'm going to do these first. Okay, can you look at these and decide if you think that they are a pronunciation and coding problem or just a coding problem? So of these ones from numbers 1 to 5, if you use the chat box, which ones do you think are a pronunciation and coding problem? Oh, in answer to that, yes, the slides will definitely be available after the session. And I will, there are also some pages which are extra, which will also be made available. Yeah. So looking at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which of the sentences do you think are pronunciation and coding problems, and which do you think are coding problems? You can use the chat box. Mm-hmm. Yes, so Catherine's saying, are they all coding problems? And yes, so some of them are kind of pronunciation plus coding problems, but they are all coding problems of some kind. Yes, so yeah, Sheena. So number 1, that's a Polish student, and she actually does say steal for still. So interesting, number 1 and 4 are both Polish students. Oh no, 1 and 3, and they're different people. And they both have a poor discrimination between it and E for still and live. So these, I think, are as a result of pronunciation and coding. Number 2, I think this one is a coding issue, probably. Obviously, this is an Arabic speaking student, and she is writing the ba. But in the bottom one, this is a Japanese student. I think the first and the last are coding, but this, Mr. Match, I think it's a pronunciation. She hasn't caught the final consonant, even though she knew that she was writing in the past. So that's an interesting one here, where she's kind of dropped that sound. You don't have to use the chat box again, but there are a couple of other ones here. So this one is like a combination one. We've got sup, but titles, so it's a combination problem. This is so common, I'm sure you've seen the which. Again, coding problem here. Coding, but big. I think it could be a pronunciation, and this one could be a pronunciation as well. Football, I don't know. Football. Anyway, so yes, they're all coding problems, but some of them do come from pronunciation. So we need to work on pronunciation for spelling, but I think what we've really got to do is help our learners make good guesses, teach sound spelling associations and patterns. And as I say, I have really tried that this year, but I heard Adam Scott speak recently, and this might be something that you guys have been using yourselves for ages, but it's something new that I've been trying, so it's new for me. So I've been trying it just recently. It's a way of developing the ability to sound out words and linking sounds to potential letters and letter combinations. So with new vocabulary or vocabulary revision, first of all, I do the meaning and keep that separate, and then work with the sound. So then I say it at a normal speed, and then I get it broken down, then I break it down. But what's quite important is to get the learners to say it in their own heads. So if we take the word spelling, we're talking about spelling. So I would say, you know, spelling, spelling, and get them not to say it out loud, but to say it in their heads, into their own voices, and then break it down into the sounds. So sp, l, I, okay, and get them to start saying those. Now, I do use the phonemes on the board because I work with phonemes and my students know the phonemes, but you don't have to do that. Okay, it's absolutely not necessary. But then, because I always go spelling, you know, how many syllables, you know, where's the, listen, you know, spelling, 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 where's the stress, you know? But what I've really tried to start doing is also how many sounds. And I heard this guy, Adam Scott, talking about this recently. And apparently this is to do with the phonics system. So many of you have probably been using this a lot, but I've only started using it just recently. So if I say to them spelling, the word is spelling, you know, we say how many syllables. So the syllables are over here. I will actually break it up. S, p, e, l, I, n. You don't have to do that, but how many sounds? S, p, e, l, I, n. Oh, there are 6. I wrote 7. Okay, there are 6 sounds. Okay, now the thing that he was doing next, and maybe you already do this. So I say to the students, okay, how many letters will it be? If it's only one letter, there's a dot. If they think it's more than one letter, then there's a line. So we go s, p, e, l. Now the problem here with the l, it might be one or it might be more than one. And then we've got I and ng. And then from there, we discuss how they might spell the word. So another example here is the word with. So with, w, I, the, 3 sounds, 1 syllable, 3 sounds. So then I ask them, how many letters do you need? So for w, you're gonna, most of them say 1, I, and then the, okay. So then together we spell that, but then we have the word which unless you have a beautiful Scottish accent, which goes, then it sounds just like a w. So there's patterns there where they have to learn about where to put the 2 letters at the beginning. So I'll just show you a quick example. So we've been working on vowel sounds and how they can be spelt, and I could generate all these spellings from them. This is actually a low intermediate class, I must say. So I can generate all these spellings, but I didn't generate the A. I had to get that from them later. So they know now that A can be spelt in lots of different ways. And we had the word 8, 2 sounds, 8. Well, okay, they know that word. So there's the line, and we've got 8. Then we had made, as in the past tense of make. So m, a, d. But they still sometimes have to consider which of these options they're going to use for spelling made. And here, the way that we draw the kind of the so-called magic E, or the E at the end that changes the short vowel to a long one, is like this, with a dot and a dot. So we've got A and a dot like that linked to give the full A, the long A sound. But then the next word they had was station. Station, how many syllables? Yeah, where's the stress? Now, initially the A, they could be saying that they think that that has more than 1 letter. But actually, of course, it only has 1. We also have to think about the sh sound. So it could be S, could be double S, often sh, but it can also be this one, shin, which of course it is here. I've started working with this with my students, and I think it's, I don't know how much impression it's making, but it seems to be helping them to really focus. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to know, maybe you're already using that kind of system. Oh, and that was just hope. So in fact, for the O sound, I got these 2 options from them, but I didn't get this one, which they do know, for low and bow, but that's the hope. So that's some of the work I've been doing on spelling, and also obviously dictation. Everybody uses dictation. There are many, many different ways to do it. The aim is to practice the sound spelling association, but the key is for learners to discover what it is about the written word that they tend not to hear. So I thought I would share one of my favorite types of dictation with you. Maybe you've done it before. This is from Adrian Underhill, and he calls it Humane Dictation. So in this case, the learners choose the text. And normally what I would do, if we've got a course book or something, I'd let them choose it from just a 2-page spread. And they work together in their groups and they decide which bit they want to do. Now, it's perfectly fine to do a couple of lines from one bit and a couple of lines from another bit. You know, different tables can choose different things. But this is the really different bit, really. Then they prepare it. So they need to look at it and decide where they're going to make the mistakes. What's difficult about this? They need to try to predict what they're going to do wrong, and they try and work on it together before then that text gets put away and they get dictation. Dictation read at normal speed, maybe twice. Then they can go through it. They can either just compare it straight back to the books, or they can mark each other's. It doesn't really matter. But what does matter is discussing the mistakes. Why have they made the mistakes? Why did they choose that passage? What did they want to practice, and what mistakes did they make? Of course, the students can do the dictation for each other as well, of course. And that's from Sound Foundations. Okay, so I need to stop speaking for a little bit. I've done a little tiny revision here because I'd like you to discuss together. Would you, or do you, use any of these with your learners? So with reading, for example, minimal pairs with consequences, learners choosing difficult words from the texts, reading and listening and reading aloud, looking for patterns, or for spelling, sounding out words. I'd be interested to know if anybody's using the dot and dash thing. The students choose their own focus for dictation, looking for patterns and working on the sound letter combination. So I'm going to stop sharing at the moment, and I'm going to ask Pauline to set up some breakout rooms. Should I share it again so you can remember what the questions are, or can you remember? Actually, there aren't that many people. How many people are in the room? I mean, we could...
There's 9 of us all together.
9. No, it's still better, I think, to go in breakout rooms, because then you'll be in smaller groups and you get more chance to talk. Okay, so do you use any of those ideas, and would you use any of those ideas?
Okay, folks, I'm going to send you off now.
How many minutes shall we do? 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
4 minutes. Yeah. Coming back in 10 seconds. Yeah.
I'll need to share my screen again, won't I?
Hello.
Hello. Sim goes quick.
Yeah, she was really quick. Welcome back, everyone. I'll hand you back to Amanda.
Hi. So I realize that maybe some of you already use some of those ideas, and if you do, it'd be interesting to know if you think they're useful, or if there's maybe a new thing that you think might be useful. So if anybody would like to speak, there aren't very many people in the room, so just put on your microphone and give some feedback if you'd like to.
Can I ask what level you start using the sounding technique? If I'm honest with you, I found it quite confusing.
Oh, yourself, sorry.
Yeah, the wrong thing to say on to talk to tutors, but what level would you start that at in an ESOL class?
I think if you're actually starting with really low levels, literally consonant, vowel, consonants, you can start it there. Like you can go k, a, t. You can go like ch, ch. You don't have to show them symbols. It's just about sound. Ch, ch. They might only know one option, or they might only, but I think it's quite important early on to establish that a sound can be associated with more than one letter. And the thing is that the problem with English is that until they become, as you're alluding to, until they've got a bigger grasp of vocabulary, it's going to be harder to start making all of those patterns. But actually the very low levels, I wouldn't pick a longer word maybe to try with the lower letters, but with the lower levels. But I do think it's important that they start sounding things out and trying to make a guess. The guess might be wrong, but I think they've got to begin to have, say the sound A. Okay, so beginners are not going to know all those different combinations for A, but within the knowledge of the vocabulary they have, what choices are they going to make? So I think it's something that we do need to help them develop. But of course, your group and you'll choose words which are suitable. And I wouldn't do a whole vocabulary, just pick 3 or 4 or less, 2. It doesn't, just a few, just to start trying to train them. Yeah. Anybody else? Have you tried any of the things? Is there anything you would like to try? I like your head today.
Okay. I thank you. I had a haircut today. I really like I made a note of it, and I'll try. I realized I never integrate pronunciation into reading unless when they are giving an answer to a comprehension question and they make a pronunciation mistake. So this underlining the words they think they don't know the pronunciation of and letting them discuss why it might be, that's something I want to try. That's something I've never done. So I like that.
And also sometimes they actually do know the word, but they don't know they know it because they haven't recognized it. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm glad you had an idea. Would anybody else like to feedback anything? Any questions?
I'm sorry, Amanda, could I just ask for clarification of minimal pairs with consequences? I'm sorry if I missed it. What does that mean? Does that mean if they get it wrong?
So instead of saying heat or eat, like I'm A and you're B, and we both have the sheet, and I say heat, and heat is number 1, and you say number 1. So you say which one you hear, as opposed to just saying them at random. It's to get some kind of response as well.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I get, yeah.
And with consequences as well, that would be like in the games. There's a consequence in the game because if they choose the wrong direction, if they say rise instead of rice, and they're supposed to be following this,
then
they're going to go the wrong way.
That, yeah.
So the idea is not just reading aloud, but reading aloud and something happening as a result of it. So like with giving directions, there's a consequence. If you say it wrong, if you say a p for a b, you might send somebody to the wrong street because you're pronouncing it. So that's the idea of a minimal pair with the consequence that something happens as a result of it being right or wrong.
Right, I get,
So there's a kind of feedback loop that occurs during the activity.
Yes, I do that. I haven't, not as much as I should. I always, whenever I come to one of the pronunciation workshops, I think, I'm not doing anything in pronunciation as much as I should.
Okay, if it's okay, I'm going to move on to listening and speaking. And hopefully I'll kind of pose some questions for you to think about. So I need to just share my screen again. And okay, can you see the listening and pronunciation? Pauline, is that okay?
Yes. Yes. Sorry, I was just trying to get unmuted. Yes, we can see it.
Okay, that's fine. So assuming a typical kind of skills-based lesson where you've got pre-listening, listening and post-listening, there aren't very many people in the room. So at which stage would you work on pronunciation? Just you can unmute yourselves if you want. Post. Okay. Anybody else?
If I'm pre-teaching vocab.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to move on and talk about quite often. So when you've got your listening text, consider the aim of the listening, because there's a difference between learning language through listening and learning to listen in a language. So very, very often, especially in our course books, we have language presented in a text, and it's some kind of grammar or language, and it's modeling, and you have comprehension tasks, and that's absolutely fine. But what we don't normally have is learning to listen in a language, the actual decoding element. So I mean, I've said that this was about aims, and the overall aim here is always to train learners to decode the stream of speech, that's what it's called, to help them listen more effectively by doing something. So let's see. Pre-listening, yes. Many people will choose to pre-teach them vocabulary, and hopefully will focus on word stress, because your learners need to know where the word stress is to help them recognize the word. Okay, but you can also put the word in a phrase beforehand and pay big attention to whether or not it changes shape. Richard Caldwell is really, really keen on this idea of sound shapes, and the fact that we can say a word more than once in a dialogue or listen to it, and it doesn't always sound the same. And that's what is really, really important and difficult about listening. You can actually give examples straight from the listening text. It's not an exam, it's not a test. You can teach vocabulary, and you can drill it. You can drill it in little tiny chunks beforehand. And chunks and earworms, I'm going to talk a little bit about chunks in a minute, but things like do you, or did you, or anything like that. Any little earworms and chunks, you can prepare them beforehand. And the segmentation, this is very often done as post-listening, but you can do it if you think your learners are going to need help. How many words? You can give them some little snippets to help them. And you can even drill little sections beforehand if you think they need it. So going to post, of course, one of the main questions is the comprehension answers. Are the errors based on language they don't know, or because they couldn't pick up words that they do know? And this is a very common problem, as we know. Usually after the listening, there's some kind of productive task, speaking or writing or something. But my question is there, can we put in a little bit of time there for listening skills building? And I'm referring to this as pronunciation for listening. Some people don't really like that term, but that's effectively what it is. It's for receptive purposes. So some suggested pronunciation aims, pre-listening or post-listening. Oral discrimination. So to practice listening to minimal pairs. So this is an example of tenses to develop the ability to decode connected speech. So in this case, it's the final O. So quite a lot of our learners can't hear final consonants, or they can't distinguish the L. So before the listening, you could do like a little drill where you read something out. You could read it out and they could write P for present or F for future. What can they hear? So that you can have 4 or 6 or 8 or however many phrases like this. So I read the newspaper, or I'll read the newspaper. You decide on one of those, you read it, and then they have to say, just make a note if they heard the present or the future. Okay, so if you think that they're not picking it up and they might need practice, you can do that. You can take it a step further. So on the board, you would have these phrases for the present, every day, every night, every week. For the future, tomorrow, tonight, and next week. You can make a little exercise where student A and student B both have the same texts. A chooses to say either we eat cake or we'll eat cake. And then B responds, so this is the consequence. So if I say we eat cake, they need to say either every day, every night, or every week. But if I say we'll eat cake, they need to respond with tomorrow, tonight, next week. These are little drills that can be done in preparation for if this is going to be in your listening. Pronunciation drills here for repeating chunks. What's your name? Even at low levels, what's your name? Where are you from? Where do you live? Where do you live? Where do you live? Not where do you live? But unfortunately, your recording might say, where do you live? And it's very unhelpful. So the problem here is different sound shapes again. And what we've really got to help our learners, if the recording says, where do you live? We've actually got to work with them and let them know that that's not what they're going to hear outside. So take out these important bits and practice them. And then you may have some students that have difficulty saying the H sound at the beginning of a word, and you spend ages practicing it, and then you put it in connected speech and it disappears. Is he there? Have you seen him? Has he got time? So you've spent ages and ages and ages getting them to say something, and then they're not going to hear it because you've connected it. Because the word he sounds different if you say, is he there? So these are the little things to help to let them practice beforehand. Sheila Thorne has done loads and loads and loads of stuff on listening and pronunciation. She's really keen on segmentation, word boundaries, how many words can you hear, and then if you want, also doing dictation. She's really keen on this idea of, if you're doing dictation, get your learners to mimic what they heard before trying to write it down. So this kind of mimicry, so that they pick up the kind of the way the words kind of fit together or go up and down. She's very keen on that. So this is something that I really like to do. You can do at any level. After doing the comprehension work, dealing with that, all the context and everything, I play it again, and I just literally get them to put their hand up as soon as they can't, if there's a section they can't understand. So it doesn't matter if they're beginner, elementary, pre-intermediate, whoever they are, it doesn't matter. They raise their hand and we stop. So then we can do it again. Listen again, listen again. Question, what did you hear? Get them to mimic it. What did they hear? And then you can work on it. Can you hear something different now? And what I did, because I'm aware, well, people in the room might know a lot about pronunciation, but maybe you might think, oh, I don't know which element of the pronunciation they need to work on. It doesn't matter. Get them to mimic what they can hear, and you can work from that sound to what's really there. So I had a Chilean friend who lived in Dundee, and she was in Tesco, and she came out and she said, Amanda, what is it? Java club card, Java club card, Java club card. Yeah? Do you have a club card? Do you have a club card? Yeah. So, but she Java club card, Java. She was trying to mimic this thing that she heard, but I could help her then. Once she'd mimicked it, I could help her break it up. So on the slides, I'm not going to go through it now, but as notes, I've made a list here of some things that you might want to look for, like segmentation, sound changes, missing sounds, weak forms, but these will just come out as notes for you. Linking problems and changing sound shapes. So these are different things that might happen in the listening. So something else that you can do, and I'm sure you maybe do already, use the audio script as a discovery tool to find the problem areas. But the thing is that although that's really, really helpful, the script doesn't change, but the speech does change. And it is a good tool, but we have to recognize it's not the same thing. But it is a really handy thing to use the scripts. I think it's a really powerful thing. I think they should be doing it for homework if you have access to that kind of thing afterwards. Reading, underlining, and listening. Again, get them to mimic. Then also use the audio script to create a gap fill. So I'm really kind of low tech. I'll just take a photocopy of the script that I've got, make it a bit bigger, use some liquid paper thing to remove the words, make the gap, photocopy it, and it's done. If you have other more high-tech ways of doing it, that's absolutely fine. But if I want them to listen to weak forms and auxiliaries and things like that, or sections that have been crushed together, then it's a really useful way. But maybe you have students who aren't strong at reading and writing. A really handy thing is to tap it. Listen for the rhythm. Take out little tiny sections. What's your name? What's your name? Now, do they hear where do you live or where do you live? So this is a kind of conversation that has to happen where you know that in the real world they're not going to hear where do you live, but they might hear that on the recording. So this is quite nice for picking out rhythms and thinking about stress. Now I have saved 3 pages here, which I'm going to give out to you in notes. These are the 10 most common 2-word clusters in English. And these are the 10 most common 3-word clusters. And these are the 10 most common 4-word clusters. But to my dismay, when I go through course books, I rarely find lots of examples of this. So if you do find them, I think it's a really good idea to drill them beforehand. And in general, if they come up in conversation, to be aware of them. So you know what I'm, yeah. Do you know what? These kind of things, they have to be able to pick up. These are the most common ones. So I've just saved them there for you to go back and have a look at, just to raise your awareness. Of course, Youglish as well. This tool is amazing. The link that I put on here is just putting in the word used to. If you haven't used it before, your learners can listen to a word or phrase in many different contexts and in different accents. Really great listening tool. So I'm going to move to speaking and pronunciation, and quite a few of you said that you did work most on pronunciation with speaking. So I'm just going to be quiet for a few seconds. Can you please think of a typical free practice or real life speaking activity that you do, and maybe 1 or 2 typical pronunciation activities you might do. So I'll just stop for a second for you to think. So hopefully you've got some ideas just from your day-to-day practice. So my question now is, how do you focus on pronunciation in a free or real life speaking activity? And is that easy to do? And conversely, how communicative are your pronunciation focused activities? And is it easy to do? Because I always find it really interesting that people say they work on pronunciation and speaking, but actually they can quite often be moving in different directions. And this diagram from Mark Hancock shows that quite often when we're focusing on pronunciation or we're focusing on speaking, then you're focusing on pronunciation. It's quite hard to actually put it into real life speaking activities. So his proposal is that actually there is a compromise to be had here. So the more real life your speaking activity is, the harder it is to insert pronunciation, focused pronunciation work. And the more focused your pronunciation work, the harder it is to make it into a real life speaking activity. I don't know if you would agree with that statement or not.
Yeah.
So the point is that we have to kind of move somewhere along the scale here. And I'm going to discuss some options here. So of course, we were talking about aims. So if we look first of all at adding a communicative focus to pronunciation activities, so your aim would be to practice whatever feature by doing something and use it in the context of something else. What I've really learned is that it's absolutely fine to use lower level language work to work on pronunciation. I used to worry about that, but I've really learned that it doesn't really matter if I'm using a pre-intermediate book, even with advanced people, I can still work on their pronunciation. So that was just something to maybe bear in mind. So some people might have heard me speak about this before. I'm just going to literally talk. These are simple steps. We've got description and analysis, followed by listening, discrimination, listen first. Then, just as we do with other skills, controlled practice, guided practice, and communicative practice, so freer practice. So if we think about that, I hope you can see this well enough, and I'm not advertising Life Elementary, but I found this activity and it was really, really great. So this is, first of all, they were doing oral discrimination with, this is contractions, obviously. Did they hear or am? Then they listen and repeat, so a controlled drill. Then they listened, and this was actually listen for content information, so that's fine. But then look, next exercise, they're listening for the missing contractions or the auxiliary verbs, really, really nice. Then they produce the language. So this again, they're guided here. They write their sentences, but then they go to use them, controlled practice, at least in the questions, the answers are freer. And then it moves on to introducing the partner to the class. So this is a really nice step-by-step progression based on this pronunciation, but moving up to using it communicatively, which I really like. This is outcomes pre-intermediate, again, starting with listening. And this is the ED endings. Then they have listen and repeat. So my suggestion there is to add in the question about how many syllables between the infinitive and the past participle. Where do you add one and where don't you? Then in this activity, they had some collocation work, and then they had to talk in pairs. They had to work in pairs and talk about stories. So they're using the verbs. They're supposed to put them into the past tense. My suggestion here is that instead of working in pairs, sometimes it's handy to work in threes and have like a monitor, but with a list of things to check for. And then actually listen and let them feed back to each other about what they're really actually saying, because sometimes they don't know what they've said. And then I was going to show you this one, but really this is carnage. I have taught this, and look how many long and short vowel sounds there are there. And never mind the fact that in Scottish, they don't really exist. Then they'll have to listen and write adjectives. Okay, they've introduced some new vowel sounds down here. They jump straight away to free practice. I don't know if it's supposed to be connected. And then they have this activity here, which I think takes about 30 minutes to set up, because you've got to go through all the combinations of how to pronounce all these different things and then give them the stem language. So to my mind, this takes about an hour and 15 minutes or more. it can cause absolute carnage. So in here, I just think there's like absolutely far too much going on. It's elementary. So I don't know what you think about that. I just put this as an extra idea. They need more oral discrimination there. I've given you some ideas about making pronunciation more communicative. So this is a pre-int, and they've got a little rhyme. And here we're working on I and E. So they have to decide. You won't get fit or feet just sitting on a seat. If you want to get fit, got to get up on your feet. I get them also to chant it. I get them to call and reply. So we work on it. I use this as a warm-up actually. But also, if you want to practice your minimal pairs, why not do find someone who? We all do that. Warmer, filler. Now we're allowed to get up and move. So the prompt is obviously, you know, we've got the sounds that were just taken there from there. We've got cat, ah, we've got horses, we've got oo, we've got oh. So I was taking them from the elementary. But use these for minimal pairs, why not? As a quick warm-up. Also with your dialogues. So this is practicing E. So first of all, pictures, but just make up a menu. If they're doing any kind of functional language, you can control what's on the menu. So put the sounds in you want them to practice. You might need to make a little recording. And again, here they listen to the dialogue and they circle the words. So Steve doesn't eat and it's meat. They can listen and read, but we've got different options. You could do a sound hunt. Where are the E sounds? Mark the stress. What's the most important word? Then practice with the dialogue. So the meat, pizza, and the Greek salad and a cup of coffee, you know. So you can pick what you want to practice. And then this is actually an American example, but again, you've got, this is a pair exercise. So we're doing Jean, Jin, Jane, Jen, Jan, John, Joan, and June. This would be more intermediate, I would suggest. But again, it's more communicative. I'll save it for you to look at because we don't have a lot of time. Now, this is again something with consequences. So if student A says hop, and then the other student says, did you say hope or hop? And then they have to spell it. I said hop, H-O-P. Okay, so here we're practicing contrasting vowels. Did you say main or man? I said main, M-A-I-N. So that's a little bit of making it more communicative. And then here, so student A, they've both got this to look at. So this is intermediate. What does fade mean? So, and then B replies either to lose color or a fashion for a short time. Okay, how do you spell ice? They might say I-S or I-C-E. So these are ideas of minimal pairs, but trying to make it a bit more communicative. And you could use different examples, obviously. This is good. So because this is an American book, actually, it matches the Scottish accent because you've got A and S. So we can't do it. I would say we can't. We can do it. Okay. So they have to listen first, notice the difference. You can repeat, but then you move on to make it more communicative. And here it's practicing contractions in general. Group A, so first of all, you say she, and then is, and then you put it together, she's. She is, she's. Okay, but coming down here, where, did, wed. Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? Where, did, wed. Okay, I'm going to save all of these for you to look at if you're interested in it. But here again, we've got, you have to say, they say one of them, they've already gone. And then the other partner says they have or they had. What did they hear? Which one did they hear? Okay, so A and B have both got the same sheets and they can take it in turns and they can practice saying them. And then the other person actually says what they can hear. So just trying to make it a bit more communicative in a way. And then the last thing is adding pronunciation focus to speaking activities. So you're practicing whatever pronunciation focus by doing something and in the context of whatever. So your options are to use dialogues. It's okay to practice with a lower level. Focus on certain features And sometimes it's good to have a third person checking. So here we've got the context. She's going to the airport. This is from New English File. We've got the you say and you hear. So we have listen and fill the gap. Okay. So we have copy the rhythm. That's okay. But then we jump straight away to practice the conversation with a partner. And I think that there needs to be more input in between here. What's the most important word? Mark the stress. Look for linking. Think about intonation patterns. You don't have to do all of those things. But I think that the jump is too quick here between, you know, listen, fill the gap, you know, listen and repeat, and then jump straight in. So I think you can add more pronunciation. This is quite nice. It's functional. This is intermediate. So we've got phrases. Is there any chance you could lend me £20 or whatever? They do intonation. Then you listen again. You complete requests. But again, I think the jump is too quick. I think in order to actually take on any of these ideas, they need to look at the phrases again, look at the impact of like the crushed zones, the connected speech, probably take one of these role plays and actually write it out first, using this language, working on the stress, working on connected speech, and then practice, and then go into free speech. I think if you really want to work on pronunciation with speaking, you need more steps here. And again, here's an activity, elementary. Do you have any on your phone? This is selfies. Do you have any selfies on your phone? Do you have any on your phone? You can look at reduced speech, stress in questions, focus on intonation, or use drills before speaking. We don't have time to put you into breakout rooms. So I'm going to stop sharing and just ask, because there's only a few minutes left, if there is if there are any questions, if there's anything that you might try or you do try already, please just unmute yourselves because there aren't very many people.
I really like your minimal pair activities. It's actually quite a simple thing to do. Taking a sentence from whether it's a listening or a reading or something, and then finding a similar word, and then yes. I really like it. And as you say, you can make it into pair work and things. You're obviously almost ticking so many boxes.
Yes.
I think I will try that.
Thank you. And it really lifts the energy.
Yes.
I'm really trying to learn about this now. I'm beginning to learn how to add more communicative element into the pronunciation activities. Yeah, it does change the energy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Sorry, I feel as though I've kind of hit you with loads of things, but I will give you the slides. So, you know, if there's anything that you want to go and find and use, then please do.
Thanks. Yeah, no, there's lots there, Amanda, that I'm going to go back and have a look at, because as you were going through them, I thought, oh yeah, that would be good to try. Yeah. That would be good to try. And I agree with some of the English file, but the jump.
The jump's too big.
I mean, some of these activities for elementary, yeah, whereas life actually, yeah.
That was interesting. Nice
progression. Yeah,
really smooth progression there. Yeah. What about the listening? Does anyone have any thoughts about the pre and post listening ideas?
I like the mimicking thing. That's something.
Yes, that's like a good one.
We always try to kind of anticipate what could be problematic, but actually literally asking them, raise your hand when you didn't hear something, tell me exactly what you heard, making it so obvious, like what I heard, what she said. So that's I think very good. I'm definitely
that's a big one, because sometimes they come in to class and say, what's this word doing, because they've heard it in Dundonian or whatever, and it's a big thing, isn't it? And then there's a really simple word, someone's just not pronounced.
Also, the intrusive things like intrusive W, the intrusive on the glides and things, that can actually, they can hear a completely different word because of the W. And it's really interesting to get them just to mimic that, whatever jumbled sound they can hear. Just get them to mimic it, because then you can start to hear what they can hear. Because the problem is, we know what it is. We can decode it. We don't really always accept that we don't actually say every single word. We don't. We mash it all together. But we can kind of guess. But they can't, because they've got too many things to do.
We also guess from the context,
of course,
and they maybe can't or don't maybe do in their own language, but not.
Of course. Yes, so I hope that, as I say, it was quite a lot of stuff, but I hope that there are some things for you to think about or maybe apply. And yeah, if you have any comments or if you try anything and have anything that you'd like to feed back to me, then that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And thank you to everyone for coming along. Amanda has finished bang on 8 o'clock. Well done. And you have crammed a lot in, but I hope, as she says, as Amanda says, there's plenty there for you to take away and enjoy. So I will forward on Amanda's slides and her extra pieces of paper to all of you. So you'll get that in the next couple of days. And this recording will go up onto our YouTube channel, which I will just share the link in the chat now for you if you want to pick that up if you don't know it already. And so at a later date you can go into the YouTube channel and relook at this recording. So thanks again for attending. We hope we'll see you at our next Natecla Scotland event next month. Thank you so much to Amanda for your time. That was brilliant as always. And good night everyone. We'll see you soon hopefully.
Thank you so much for coming everyone.
Tomorrow.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.